Now, I want to touch on a few things that you mentioned. You mentioned bloodlines. Of course, you referenced the fact that you are a blood relative of Frederick Douglass, of course, a prominent figure in Black America. But you also mentioned something interesting as well. We live here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. To be frank, the natives here, I guess Turks and Caicos Islands, people who are from here, born and bred, those numbers are dwindling.
Yes.
So you tend to see a lot of mixed couples, mixed families. I want to question you as to whether is there an inherent problem with that? Can we be benefits with that, or would you prefer to see more, I guess, Black fathers, Black mothers together raising Black children? What is the issue with not having that situation right now, as it applies to Turks and Caicos?
Yes, several issues.
Okay.
Number one, African children here are not seeing healthy families that they can exemplify in their own life. In order for me to love on a Black woman, I got to see a Black man loving on a Black woman. You understand? So the traditional Black family, is under attack. The image of the Black family is at risk for extinction because you no longer see strong, successful Black men happily married. I want to underscore happily, because there's a lot of marriages, but they're miserable. Our children see miserable Black families. We need our children to see happy and healthy Black families, and there's not enough of them to go around. When a Black man loves on a white woman, that teaches Black girls that they're not good enough. In addition to being a psychologist, I've also been a school principal. I've regularly had to contend with young princesses coming to me saying, Dr. Umar, why is it that Black men don't find us attractive? In the second grade, we're talking about 8 and 9 year olds, 7-year-olds even. What's wrong with me? Well, what do you mean? Well, I noticed that when Black men become successful, they tend to marry a woman who doesn't look like me, who doesn't look like their mother. Is there something wrong with me? So Black men need to be conscious of the fact that when you commit your mind, body, and soul to a white woman or a woman of any other race, you're disrespecting African women and you're disrespecting African girls, because we know what? That prior to the end of slavery, prior to the end of colonialism, you wasn't even allowed to date outside of your race. So how is it you were able to control your urges for all these centuries, and then all of a sudden you go jungle fever crazy for the white woman? It's because Black men tend to date outside of their race because they don't see any value in their race. It is born of a self-hatred. Your attraction is based on your values. There's no such thing as falling in love with anybody whose culture you do not value. Marriage is a political decision. When you get married, you're making a political decision about who you are loyal to. And so when you marry a white woman, you're making a political decision that you're going to be loyal to white people and white culture. That is extremely disrespectful when you look at everything our ancestors have been through the slavery, dehumanization, Jim Crow, oppression, second-class citizenship, in today, 2016, neocolonialism. It is absolutely unacceptable. And that's why the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, when he built the UNIA, you could not join the Garvey movement, which is the #1 Pan-Africanist movement in history. You cannot join the Garvey movement if you was married to a non-African, because it's an insult to our women. In America, in the UK, and in Canada, only 1 out of every 4 Black women gets married in her life. 25%. I'm sure it's not better here, even though it's predominantly Black. They may cohabitate with the women, but they don't commit through marriage. So if we have a shortage of Black women being married by Black men, how do we find space and time to go marry somebody else's daughter? It's not acceptable. It's not a hatred for the white woman or any other woman. I have 2 daughters. I would hope that the white man would respect my daughters. I'm going to respect his daughters. But politically, my loyalty is to my own. And I offer no excuses or justifications for being loyal to my own. If I'm going to be loyal to Black people, if I'm going to be loyal to African history, if I'm going to be loyal to African ancestors, if I'm going to be loyal to African culture, I got to be loyal to the Black family. If you're not loyal to the Black family, you're not loyal to Black people. And I've had this issue come up where brothers who date outside the race, conscious Black men, have come to me. I'm a conscious Black man. I care about my people, but I'm married to a white woman. Guess what, my brother? You're not conscious. Because if you were conscious, your wife would look like your mother. The revolution starts at home. How can you build revolutionary minds at home when you're sleeping with a member of the oppressor race?
You mentioned Marcus Garvey. Of course, a lot of people know in the Caribbean his influence as far as Pan-Africanism. You sort of I guess you are a follower of that ideal as well. For people who may not be, I guess, knowledgeable about what that is, can you give a brief sort of definition about what Pan-Africanism is?
Garveyism is nothing more than the highest stage or expression of revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. Garveyites, we would be the elite of the Pan-Africanists, if you would, the strictest, the fundamentalist Pan-African. That's us. If I were to sum up Pan-Africanism in 5 principles, principle number 1, all African people, no matter where we live, no matter what language we speak, no matter what our skin tone is, no matter what our religion is, or what culture we participate, what flag we pledge, we are all members of the same African family. There's only one African, period. So whether you in Nigeria speaking Igbo, whether you in Turks and Caicos speaking British, whether you in Senegal speaking French, whether you in Australia speaking whatever they speak there, you understand? Whether you in Cuba speaking Spanish, guess what? We are all one family. That's number 1. All Africans are one family. Pan-Africanism is African family first. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, we identify as being African before we identify as being anything else. So you're not a Christian who happens to be African. You're an African who happens to be a Christian. You're not a Muslim who happens to be an African. You're an African who happens to be a Muslim. You understand? You're not an African Turk, but a Turk African. Do you understand? The Africanity is the foundation for everything. So we identify on that. So when I come here, I'm not meeting a Turks and Caicos brother. I meet an African brother who just so happens to be from there. You understand? So that's Pan-Africanism. Number 3, we believe in self-determination in all things. Whatever is to be done for African redemption is only to be done by African people. We do not cooperate with, nor do we build coalitions with non-African people, because we have to learn how to solve our own problems. Since slavery, we've been psychologically conditioned to believe that we cannot fix our problems without outside participation. So as Pan-Africanists, we say self-determination in all things.
That's economy, all that stuff.
All things. If the white man can build his own nation, if the Chinese can build his own nation, why you need them to build yours? You were building nations before they even existed. You're the oldest man on the planet. How dare you say you need outside help and outside tutoring in order to build nations when you're the world's first nation builder? So we say whatever is to be done for Africans must be done by Africans. You understand? Mao Zedong of China, who studied Marcus Garvey, who took Garveyism to China and used it to make China what it is today. When Mao took over China, China was a second-class nation. When Mao Zedong went to Russia to meet with Stalin, Stalin didn't even shake his hand. He said, these Chinese are beneath me. Mao went back to China, sent his children all around the world to study how everybody else build, created, manufactured. And now China today is what? The #1 producer, okay, of generic versions of everything sold in the world. Whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a laptop, whether it's an automobile, they've mastered everyone else's machinery. That's what China did. That's Garveyism. Learn how to do it yourself. But the problem with self-determination in the Caribbean and in Africa is most of our heads of state in African countries don't have the willpower, the motivation, the commitment, or the energy to make our people go through an age of struggle so they can live through an age of redemption. See, China had to go through a period of struggle to get to where they at. Remember, the British used to be slaves to the Germans. The British had to go through a period of struggle to get to where they at. We're going to have to do the same thing. But the problem with us as African people, not just the leadership, but even us as Africans, we've gotten so comfortable with the racial status quo of this planet. We're comfortable knowing we can drive a nice car. We're comfortable knowing I can rock my cell phone. We're comfortable knowing we can buy some Air Jordans or live in a white suburb. We don't mind being oppressed as long as we can benefit from the gadgets of white reality. That's not freedom. That's not living. That's surviving. We don't want to survive. We want to thrive. So we say self-determination. 4th principle, as Africa goes, so goes all African people. Marcus Garvey said a strong man is strong everywhere. What does he mean by that? Have you ever seen Chinese kids getting killed by the police? Chinese children belong to gangs. They got gangs in the Caribbean. They got gangs in America. They got gangs in the UK. They never get murdered by police. Why is that? Chinese are respected wherever they go. Why is that? Because China is respected. Look at East Indians. Wherever the East Indians go, they get respected. Why? Because East India gets respect. And wherever the black man lives, I don't care if you're in Jamaica, Bermuda, St. Croix, Suriname, Kenya, Nigeria, Malawi, Brooklyn, LA, Houston, Australia, UK, Holland, France, and I've been to all these places. We're on the bottom. Why are we on the bottom? Because Africa on the bottom. And what do we try to do to solve our problem? We try to disidentify from Africa. Since Africa ain't strong, we don't want to identify with her. I'm not African, I'm American. I'm not African, I'm Caribbean. But when white folks see, they see an African. They know what you are. You can't run away from that. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA. It's in your phenotype. But we want to run away from it because we've been taught that we should not be proud of that, failing to realize that unless you commit to that and resurrect her, you'll never be resurrected. As Africa goes, so goes the rest of the world. There isn't an African nation on the face of the earth that is strong enough to last one day in a military conflict with any European nation. That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. As Africa goes, so goes we. Which takes me to the last point of Pan-Africanism, which is repatriation. We believe that some of us, not all of us, some of us have to go back to Africa to work from the inside to make Mother Africa powerful. As she improves her respect, we improve our respect. As Africa gets her economy together, our economy gets better. So there's no separation of African people from African reality. Africa, the richest continent on the face of the earth. Why would you want to give it up? 90% of the diamonds, why you want to give it up? 90% of the coltan, why you want to give it up? 70% of the untapped gas and oil, why do you want to give it up? It makes no sense. Only a fool would give up Africa. And every time I go to Africa, who do I see? The Chinese, the white man, the Arab, buying up Africa like it's a dollar store. But all the other Africans around the diaspora, we want nothing to do with Africa. We just want to be accepted by white folks. You can take the slave out of slavery, but until the slave takes the slavery out of himself or herself, you'll never be free. Slavery don't end once you end slavery. Right. It now lives psychologically. You have to do something to remove the slave impulse from the mind. You can't because it's already rooted. You got to start fresh with the babies. 70% of our attention should be focused on making sure we're raising healthy African children. Only 30% should go to the adults. But guess what we do? We spend 70% of our time trying to get you to understand you shouldn't be with a white woman. Trying to get you to understand you shouldn't be praying to a white Jesus. Trying to get you to understand that you need to contribute to the global African struggle. That you need to pan-Africanize your consciousness. That's a waste of time. You a grown man. You ain't likely to change unless you want to change. But that baby, he ain't got core beliefs yet. That baby, he ain't got habits yet. That baby, he ain't got concrete political views yet. Start with the child. Like Frederick said, build strong children. Stop trying to repair a broken man.
You spoke about Pan-Africanism. You talked about the Caribbean, European and everything. Well, places in Europe as well. A lot of the countries in Europe were responsible for a lot of the oppression that goes on or went on in the Caribbean, of course, in the States as well. A topic that has sort of erupted now, not just in areas such as Haiti, but other countries in the Caribbean as well, as the idea of reparations for the years of slavery, and even after, especially for Haiti, after they were able to dominate, revolutionize against the French, years of oppression after they got their independence. What is your thought as far as Garveyism is concerned? How does that work? How does the idea of reparations work with Garveyism?
It fits in perfectly. If you're a Pan-Africanist, you believe in reparations. Now, let me give you a couple quick points on reparations. Number one, I take issue with the way in which reparations is currently being carried out internationally because it's segmented and sectionalized. Okay, a house divided cannot stand. The UK has its own reparations movement. The United States has its own reparations movement. Australia has its own reparations. CARICOM has its own reparations. You're not going to be able to fight this fight in a sectionalized fashion.
It needs to be unified.
It has to be united because there wasn't 50 different slaveries. There wasn't 50 different colonialism. There was one spread across the world. So how are you going to separate out what is owed to the Caribbean from what was owed to Africa from what was owed to Africans in America and what was owed to African, because that's the transatlantic slave trade. How are you going to separate the Caribbean out from what went on from and to Africa, what went on from and to America? How are we going to separate out what happened in America from what happened in Africa to the Caribbean? It's all one. We one people. But because we're so astute in the philosophy of tribalism, selfishness, and sectionalism, we just want to fight for our small little piece and ignore the rest, which means you're going to end up getting less than what's owed to you because you're not calculating the total picture. So number one, there needs to be a unified reparations movement. That's number one. Number two, there's parties that are guilty of participating in the transatlantic slave trade, the Great Ma'afa, who have not been named. I haven't seen the Roman Catholic Church named yet. I haven't seen the British East India Company named yet. I haven't heard the Oppenheimers and De Beers named yet. I haven't heard any of the Arab nations of the world named yet. They were trading in slaves before the white man. So how are you going to have reparations when the major players have not even been named? So that's number two.
In fact, they've been revered over the years.
Yes. Number three, I haven't seen any calculation of the psychological costs and damage and restitution. Our psychological cost is greater than the physical. The unpaid labor of our ancestors, that's a pretty penny. But that's nothing compared to the psychological consequences of slavery that we still suffer from. See, the physical slavery may have ended, but the psychological residuals go on. Why hasn't that been calculated? That's your biggest expense. You see. And then my last issue that I'll mention for the sake of time is, why do I see a dollar amount mentioned at all in a reparations lawsuit? I don't want any money. I want wealth. I want resources. I want control over certain waterways, certain industries. I want certain privileges and provisions that no one else gets on the face of the earth. Why do I see money? America's money isn't backed by resources. The UK's money isn't backed by resources. Most European money isn't backed by natural resources. That means it's worthless. That means they can shift the market at any time they want and crush the dollar, crush the pound, crush the euro. You understand? So why are we looking for money? That's a setup for failure. Money runs out. Can the benefit of slavery to Europe ever run out? Never. So whatever we are paid should never be able to run out. Control of certain waters, that never runs out. Control of certain industries, that never runs out. Control of certain land, that never runs out. But to put a dollar amount on a benefit that can never expire when the dollar can is a setup for failure. Which means we need to look critically at these reparations lawsuits to see whether or not the people behind them are fighting for black freedom or fighting for their own selfish financial gain.
That brings up an interesting point, because in the Turks and Caicos Islands and other Caribbean countries, I imagine in Africa as well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they see those same industries, they see those same waterways, them same areas as a way to, as a cash cow, basically.
Yes, hustle.
Exactly.
And the biggest problem we got in the African world, whether it's America, UK, Africa, or the Caribbean, is black hustlers in leadership positions. We got too many hustlers in leadership positions. There's exceptions to the rule, but they're few and far in between. The biggest mistake that has been made in post-independence Africa is the election of Negroes who do not care about the general quality of life of the everyday citizen in their country. They're only in office to prepare for life after office.
Right.
Do you understand? So what's the first thing the European governments do when you get a new elected official in a predominantly black country, Africa or the Caribbean? They dangle the carrot in front of your face. They want to see if you for the people, if you for yourself. And once they find out you're for yourself, you're done. Because once they bought you, once they made you conduct illegal business in the name of the state, if you try to go back to be for the people, you're done. You're going to end up in international criminal court, crimes against your country, corruption, when it was them who influenced you to do it, because that's how they control you. They want you to be greedy. They want you to be thirsty. They want you to be conniving. So no one should ever run for presidency of a Caribbean nation or an African nation if you don't believe in the freedom of your people above your own personal financial well-being, because they will corrupt you and control you through the corruption. See, what we have post-independence is we got a flag, we got an anthem, and we got a vote. That's all you got. All of that Kwame Nkrumah, all of that the Nnamdi Azikiwe, all of that Patrice Lumumba, all of that Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral, Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, and all we got was a vote, a flag, and an anthem. But the resources are still controlled by Britain. You understand? They're still controlled by France. That ain't no independence. That's a joke. I just came from Kenya. In Kenya, the Chinese control the import-export. Okay? Europeans, the shops. Indians, the shops. There's 5 continents wherever you go in the world where black people live. 5. I don't care where you go. Turks, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas, Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia. 5. Number 1, our kids are being taught by other people or by other people's curriculum. Right now, Turks and Caicos, it's a colonialist curriculum. America, white man's curriculum. I don't care where you go, our kids are being prepared for failure by someone else's curriculum. Number 1, that's global. That's global. Number 2, the economy in the black community is thoroughly being controlled and regulated by non-Africans. Here, we own almost nothing. America, we own almost nothing. Africa, we own almost nothing. UK, we own almost nothing. I don't care where you go. If you want to eat, you want to drive, you want to buy a phone, need some clothes, you got to shop, you're buying from a non-African. Even in a predominantly African nation. You follow? 3rd, white Jesus. Wherever you go in the world, black people still worshiping their deity in the image of their enemy. That is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Every country I go to, 99% of the churches I enter, our children are still being taught that a white savior freed them. That's 3rd. Number 4, single parent mothers. Wherever you go. Because of the war against black men that sends them to the penitentiary or to the cemetery prematurely. That's part of it. Single parent mothers raising our black boys. Our boys need to be raised by men so they know what it is to be a man. We love our mothers. They do a good job. But the boys need both. It ain't the mother's fault. It's the war against the black men. Which takes me to number 5. Mass unemployment and mass incarceration of black men. I don't care where you go. Those are the 5 black consonants, all implemented by white supremacy and racism. And the sad thing about it now, in the Caribbean and in Africa, these lazy heads of state, instead of making Africa go through that sacrificial era so we can experience redemption, guess what they're doing now? They're detaching from the European. And now they're reattaching to the Chinese. So I'm in Jamaica for the Garvey Day celebration. Chinese is being given land. Chinese is buying stuff up. Chinese don't care about black folks. What did they do during slavery? Nothing. What did they do during colonialism? Nothing. Right now, we're in the middle of the second Cold War. The second Cold War is between America and UK versus China for who's going to dominate Africa and the Caribbean. We're not even in the table. We the subjects. You see that? We the subjects. We're not even at the table, and it's about us. The white man and the brown man is fighting over who's going to control the black man. So 500 years from now, we're going to have to fight another independence war. Not against the white man, but against the Chinese if we keep this nonsense up. This ain't no progress.
Trust me, it's very interesting because, you know, you go about your daily lives and you don't even consider these things. People for the most part are ignorant of what's going on.
Because we were trained not to be concerned about things that matter. That's from slavery. Think about it. The life of a slave, and we didn't live it, but we saw it and we studied it. You wake up. You were not asked to think about nothing. You wasn't asked to make no decisions. You wasn't asked to consider your future. You exist for my best interest. You see that? Your whole life is about someone's best interest. Slavery in, we still are only concerned about the best interest of our employee. Because as a slave, your own life wasn't under your control. So it needed none of your attention. We are still in the slave culture today.